One of the things we've talked about this semester is how the Bible is occasional literature. What that means, it's addressing the specific occasions of its author, the issues that come up for that author. It's why the Bible was written. It was written on purpose to address some of these issues. Some places of the Bible, I think that's pretty easy to see. In the New Testament, where you have Paul writing letters to churches, it's pretty easy to understand he's addressing issues in that churches, which motivates the writing of those letters. Other places it's a little bit harder to see, but understanding that historical context, that historical occasion, can be as important as understanding the literary context. We've talked about looking at passages of Scripture in their literary context. Their historical context can shed some insight as well into the thinking and the world of the author. One place where I think that helps at the beginning of the text is in understanding the culture of Mesopotamian religion. One of the features of it was the Apkallu, were the Apkallu. The Apkallu are these sort of demigod features. They're featured a lot in a lot of the Mesopotamian art, and a lot of the bas-reliefs will see them. They sometimes have human heads, sometimes have fish heads, sometimes have bird heads, often in attendance of the Tree of Life. They're always carrying a bucket. You can always spot an Apkallu carrying his bucket, often standing behind the king. And the reason for that is there was a belief in general Mesopotamian religion that the Apkallu were the ones who were responsible for providing culture to the world. So the gods gave art and music and metalworking and law codes, domestication of animals and city building and all those things to the king, and then, to the Apkallu. The gods give it to the Apkallu gives it to the king. Then the king will provide it to, the peasants. If you are obedient to the king and do what he says and pay your taxes and give your kids in military service, then you can enjoy the great largesse of the king and enjoy the benefits that all the gods have to offer. So all of that is coming directly from the gods. The biblical text, however, I think fully aware of this tradition, fully aware of the tradition of the Apkallu and what they did and the way in which the rest of the world believed it, tells us this in the genealogy of chapter 4. Later, Cain and his wife had a son named Enoch. At the time, Cain was building a town, so he named it Enoch after his son. Then Enoch had a son named Irad, who had a son named Mehujael, who had a son named Methushael, who had a son named Lamech. Lamech married Adah, and then Zilha. Lamech and Adah had two sons, Jabal and Jubal. Their son Jabal was the first to live in tents and raise sheep and goats. Jubal was the first to play harps and flutes. Lamech and Zilha had a son named Tubal-Cain, who made tools out of bronze and iron. They also had a daughter whose name was Naamah. So, what is this? I mean, this is one of those texts that gives the Bible a bad reputation, right? That pretty boring read. The begets and the begets and the begets and who gave birth to what. But tucked within this genealogy, I think, is a wonderful countercultural message. We've already seen the Bible work counterculturally in saying that every human being bears God's image, not just the king, but all humanity bears God's image. More than that, all of humanity has a royal responsibility to serve and to protect the earth. That dominion word is to serve and to protect all that God has given. So again, immediately running countercultural to what the rest of the world says humanity is supposed to do and what it's supposed to be. Here we have another countercultural message, a very powerful one, because where the rest of the world says art and culture and music and metalworking and animal husbandry and all that comes from the gods through the Apkallu, the Bible comes along and says, no, humanity does that. Humanity is responsible for creating music and domesticating animals and building cities and working with metal and putting all these things together. It's human beings that do that. So where the rest of the world is dependent on the gods and hopefully can earn enough favor to get good things, God has, it seems, placed grace in humanity of the image of God, and part of what it means to have that image of God is to be creative. So here we have early humanity showing how creative they can be. God creates the universe, humanity creates music and metalworking and domesticating animals and city building and all these things. Now, one thing that's interesting is that this all comes from the line of Cain. And that's caused some struggle with interpreters over the years because we wouldn't want to ever think of anything positive coming from the line of Cain. That really seems to bother people, that positive things might come from the line of Cain. And even reformers dealt with it. Well, music's okay, but the rest of it, I mean, some real struggles with how to interpret this. I don't think it's necessarily a sign that all that comes from Cain's line is evil. Rather, I think it's more a testament to the power of God's grace that even human brokenness can't overcome what it is to be in the image of God. Even human brokenness can't overcome this creative impulse that humanity has. So the challenge of the biblical text is not to passively try to earn the favor of God to get presents, but in fact to use the gifts that God has given. Use that imago Dei, that image of God that has been presented to work for God's creative purposes in this world, to lay your gifts and creativity on that altar and see what God can do with them. A wonderful countercultural message to the surrounding world.